You are now watching Maine Wire TV with your host, Tom Shattuck, featuring Maine Wire Editor-in-Chief Steve Robinson and the indispensable John Featherston.
Tom Shattuck here. Another busy week. We're already rolling here. John Featherston, Steve Robinson, Graham Pollard. You know what? I want to start with, we hit it yesterday with Dr. Oz throwing down the gauntlet on Maine, which resulted in Janet Mills starting a beef or starting beef, as my kids would say, with Mehmet Oz.
We might have another Minnesota on our hands. Remember that state's program for children with autism, the one where Somali fraudsters set up fake treatment centers and stole millions of taxpayer dollars? Well, the same thing appears to be happening in Maine. 2 weeks ago, Health and Human Services investigators released a report on Maine's autism program in which they identified at least $45 million in improper payments. But that's not all. They learned that the program's payouts increased more than 50% in just 4 years. They found that treatment centers are clustered in small geographic areas, just like they did in Minnesota. They reviewed paperwork that was missing crucial information, like whether the kids receiving these services had been properly diagnosed with autism in the first place. 100% of the claims they examined had problems. And most troubling of all, they discovered that Maine had never conducted a statewide review of its autism program. Once again, it looks like another governor left the cash register unattended, and criminals helped themselves to your hard-earned money. Rest assured, we're going to get to the bottom of this. Today, we sent a letter to Governor Janet Mills and Maine's health commissioner demanding more information about how they're preventing, identifying, and remediating fraud in the autism program and other programs that have raised red flags. If we don't like what we see, CMS will work with Maine to put their house in order. And if we're not satisfied with their progress, we reserve the right to cut off payments entirely. That's what it means to fight fraud, preserve program integrity, and protect your taxpayer dollars. And that's what we'll keep doing every single day here at CMS.
In response to that, letter that Oz sent, Janet Mills sent him a letter, essentially giving him the finger. To which Dr. Oz probably will follow up on. I get the feeling, but even though this is fairly new to Mehmet Oz, this is not new to the Maine Wire. We've been on this for months. John Featherston and Steve Robinson were out there today hitting the bricks. John, why don't you tell us what you ran into as far as these facilities go, or these autistic care?
You know, Dr. Oz, I don't want to speak for Dr. Oz, but Dr. Oz is not going to be happy with what he sees because John Featherston and Steve Robinson are not happy with what we've seen. You know, Steve mentioned it to on the Sean Ryan podcast that sometimes it would be better if people weren't in these houses and it was just a misbilling thing. We're talking about human lives here. You know, we're talking about conditions that you'd want no loved one to be found in. I went to a house today in Lewiston, and full disclosure, I didn't get in the door, but I didn't have to get in the door because I stood in the doorway. The house was dirty. The house smelled like urine just by me standing on the front porch and looking at it. One of the people that was mentioning to me, like, go to the other door, quite obviously didn't speak English. Another person who did open the door and explained to me that he worked for the company and he worked 12-hour shifts there 2 days a week, spoke very good English and was a very, very polite person, but very vague on the details, very vague on what type of care that he provided, and more importantly, he really didn't even know really who he worked for. So convince me, a parent of an autistic adult child, that that this is good care. Like, it's not good care. And Steve and I went to another house in Auburn today as well too, and I would say, Steve, I think you would agree that it was a little bit more reassuring, but still, it didn't pass my sniff test of, like, I'd want one of my loved ones living there.
Yeah, well, I think that house was probably operated by a more long-standing firm. It didn't have some of the signs that we've seen around other residential care facilities and group homes. And I would just say, that we have been, this is a story that we've been working on for 10 months. And even preceding that, we've had people coming to us saying, You need to look at these group homes. You need to look at these residential care facilities. And so we've been, looking at them very closely and seeing them up close and in person. And I would say the story just keeps getting bigger and bigger every rock we flip over. But I'm prepared to say that we've got a crisis in the state in our residential care facilities, and that if you've got loved ones in a residential care facility, you should be following up with them to make sure that they're okay, because there's widespread neglect and abuse happening at residential care facilities. We've heard firsthand from employees, former employees, from social workers, in one instance of a resident that we were able to talk with. But there's a big problem going on here, and for whatever reason, the Mills administration doesn't seem eager to look into it. And this is an entirely different program from the program that Administrator Oz is talking about there. In the video, he's talking about children with autism diagnoses. This is, I believe, Maine Care Section 28, which is what Gateway Community Services was involved with. So he's talking about an audit of 1 year within one program that's not even related to the residential care facilities that John and I have been visiting and that we've been poring over the financials of for 10 months now. So there's a whole bucket of different problems here that I think the Mills administration probably doesn't even know how big of a problem they have on their hands. And they especially don't know, I think, how serious the federal investigation is going to be. They might be thinking that Administrator Oz is just a TV personality, but within the federal government, as the administrator of the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare and Medicaid, he is the top person to be directing investigations into Medicaid fraud. So in some ways, if you're worried about a congressional subpoena, or if you've got something to hide in your Medicaid program, Dr. Oz is the last person who you want paying attention to you.
100%.
It's interesting. It's so deep here that I'm conflating some of the many Medicaid autism scandals that we're dealing with. And one of the challenges for me is that the scandals keep expanding and expanding and expanding. Obviously, the root core is fraud. But is it possible, Steve, that some of this stuff is so discoverable by you and John? And I know that you're pouring through paperwork and going through all sorts of data, and that's hard work. But is it possible that some of this stuff is so evident to the naked eye when John's out there, when you're out there, because the fraudsters themselves are unable to scale up quickly enough? If all the fraud has been growing exponentially in the millions of dollars over the past 5 years, could it be that the fraudsters just are not skilled enough to contain this or shepherd this along in any kind of way that might help them keep the grift alive?
Well, I guess when you're looking at the residential homes within Maine Care Section 21, each one of those requires a federal waiver, because this is the most robust form of care that can be supplied under Maine Care. This is 24/7 one-on-one care. You have a full-time one person there to take care of you in a residential facility that should be treated like it's your own personal home. So this is like full suite care for someone who cannot live by themselves and is diagnosed with autism or a developmental disorder. The number of Section 21 waivers that Maine has actually declined slightly since 2018, as we've seen these new providers, pop out of thin air and suddenly increase their billing from 500,000 to 17 million or 28 million per year. So they're actually, I guess, taking more of the market from some of the existing providers. But on the Section 28 program, where you can actually increase the number of patients receiving that care by providing the fake diagnoses, as Dr. Oz alluded to in that video, that's one where you do see explosive growth. So there's a number of problems with each different section of it, but the costs should not be growing within Maine Care Section 21 because the number of waivers aren't increasing, right? The number of people, they're decreasing slightly, the number of people who are getting this level of care. And yet we see these bizarre patterns of people falling over themselves to start new Maine Care Section 21 companies and buying up as much real estate as possible. Obviously, they figured out something really, really lucrative, despite there being a stable level of patients existing within that program, what they can bill for. So for any, I would say any fraud investigator or any normal person, any accountant who looks at the Medicaid spending money like we have can see, well, there's something unusual happening here.
And Graham, let me ask you, if the Eye of Sauron, being the Eye of Mehmet Oz, is now on Maine, is it in the midterms, in a midterm year, is it something that you think that the administration might be reticent about diving in totally on? Or I'll just say it there. Will they pull a punch here, or are they going to go all in, do you think?
You know, we're working on a video that they filmed, and it's about 25 minutes long, and it is such an emotional video that it's hard not to just get angry when you're editing it. And usually I'm not a very emotional person, and I'm working on the edit with our producer Matt here. So we're both going through it, and it's just so like heartbreaking what is happening. And that's the reaction that I think a lot of people watching the video are going to have. So for the administration to ignore this completely, I think is going to be very difficult based on the statement she already put out. It would be one thing if they just completely ignored Dr. Oz, but she already put out a statement, so she already addressed it. And this is something that's going to get people extremely passionate, extremely fired up, I think, when they see some of the reporting come out on it. And it leads me to believe that even if it's just a paper tiger, even if they don't actually do anything, I think she's going to have to try to get in front of it. I think it's going to be that big of a story.
So we saw that Janet Mills in her letter back said, bleep you, this is the Trump administration attacking Maine, which we saw. It allows her to tether that to Susan Collins as well. Is this a winning issue for Susan Collins, who, by the way, pause right there. Let's play her video. She is officially running now, Susan Collins, and she has come out with a novel grand opening of her new campaign strategy in this video.
This is perfect for 2026 because I'm running.
Ooh. Other than a nice nod to New Balance for some product placement there, this rings. Maybe you remember, John. Remember Patty Murray in about 1993? Patty, I'm a mom with new shoes. So yeah, she's in. You can all discuss if you want to what you feel about that opening video. I think it's. I don't feel comfortable about it. But will she use this? Will she use this issue as something that certainly there's going to be Senate oversight as a bludgeon against her Democratic opponents?
I think she will, because I'm a fan of Susan Collins. Didn't love the video, but I'm a big fan of Susan Collins. And the reason why I'm a fan of Susan Collins is because she does care about people. And when she sees this video, once Graham and Matt are done editing it, and Steve and I lived it, I'm not trying to be emotional because I'm not an emotional guy. I haven't been right since we did it. So when Susan Collins sees this, she's going to take action because that's the type of person she is. And shame on Mills, because her butt just wrote a check that she can't cash, because once this video comes out, you can't tell me that Washington's picking on you, because all of Maine's going to be picking on you once this video comes out.
Yeah, I hate talking about reporting that we haven't done yet, but
right.
It's such a big it's such a big story, such a big issue, and it's so in the news that it feels difficult to avoid talking about it, since it's something that John and I and Matt have all been living and following along with for quite a while now. But in terms of the announcement video, I mean, it's usual campaign fare. I assumed that she was running. I don't think it was a surprise to anybody that she was running for re-election. So I think that was probably the The newsworthy thing, I guess, would be that they, waited until it was like 50 days out from the filing deadline to officially declare that she's going to be running for office. New Balance, I will say, having relatives who live in that area, is a great employer. They actually still manufacture in Maine, still have products in Maine. Unlike, I'm familiar with Dexter Shoes in my hometown, which was bought by Warren Buffett and offshored. So New Balance is an example of a company that has actually prioritized Mainers and Americans. I don't see any downside to hitching your wagon to New Balance, but I think that Medicaid fraud is one issue that I think is going to be a major factor in the campaign if Janet Mills is the nominee. And I also think that Chinese marijuana is going to be a major issue as well. Those are two areas where the governor has really just allowed organized crime to fester in the state of Maine and rob taxpayers, rob homeowners, poison cannabis users, undercut legitimate cannabis business owners. And Governor Mills has been silent in it or complicit in it, has bragged about expanding Medicaid, while I think Senator Collins has been on the other side, certainly, of the Chinese marijuana issue. But that all presupposes that Governor Mills is going to be the nominee. And I increasingly think that that's not going to be the case.
Totally.
I think I don't see her getting past Graham Platner at this point.
I don't either.
Yeah, I think Graham Platner is going to blow Susan Collins out. And if I can just quickly touch on the video, I mean, I kind of have the same opinion they do. It was a little cringe. My big issue was, why did she post the video as a link to YouTube instead of just posting the video? Like, that's kind of like fundamentals 101 of social media of what not to do. Like, why not just post that video on Twitter instead of posting a link to YouTube for it? But anyways, no, this should be a winning issue for Susan Collins. Like, in my opinion, that's what she should focus on. She is going to need to win over a lot of the more moderate voters that she has in the past. And some of these issues like Chinese marijuana and fraud, in theory, should be nonpartisan issues. It should be a line in the sand that she can draw and say, because Platner hasn't talked about these either yet. So she can say, this is what I'm focusing on, and this is the results I'm going to deliver to Maine by hammering in on these issues that they haven't even talked about.
Unfortunately, all of us know somebody with cancer, and now we all know somebody in our family or our group of friends that has autism as well. So this resonates with everybody, so. Yeah.
And it seems like, Steve, that she's got the world to run against if she's the world of corruption. If she runs against Mills, and Mills owns all of this. Like, she's got her hands in everything. She's got her family involved in Chinese weed. So, I mean, but it seems to be at the same time that you're hearing the tagline steady leadership around Collins. And that sounds like a tagline that's made to counter Graham Platner. She's got decades of steady leadership, and he's untried in times when we need expertise. Am I right about that, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair analysis of the tagline that the campaign seems to be coming out with. I don't know what kind of assessment they've made about how that primary is looking. I assume that any of those campaigns are doing some internal polling to see who happens to be leading there. Just as an outsider looking in, it seems like Platner has survived what was Chuck Schumer's best attempt at dumping some oppo and trying to take him out of the race. Remarkably, getting the weird deformed dog tattooed over his Nazi tattoo seems to have pacified people, and just not dropping out seems to have it seems like they've moved past that. I would love to see some polling of that Senate primary and see just where the attitude of primary voters are. I know that in large part, early on, some strategists who were affiliated with Graham's campaign were counting on his appeal to MAGA voters who are only lightly attached to politics. They thought that conservative working class people would identify with Graham Platner because he pretends to have an oyster business and has a military background. But that doesn't that I guess assumes that they can vote in one primary, like they can vote in the Republican gubernatorial primary and then vote in the Democratic primary, which you can't do. You have to take one ballot, either Republican or Democrat. So I get any appeals that they're counting on dragging conservative blue collar workers away from Collins to Graham Platner. It's not going to work because they're going to have to convince registered Republican voters or conservative independents to enroll in the Democratic primary, or I guess with registered Republicans, they'll have to disenroll and then enroll as Democrats to take a primary ballot to vote for Graham Platner over Mills and abstain from voting in what's going to be a very competitive Republican primary. I don't see that working. So I think he's got like the general election appeal to the blue collar workers, guys with military backgrounds, guys who just want to say screw the system, rebel against the machine, that kind of thing, for sure. But I don't know how that works in the Democratic primary. The Maine Democratic primary voter is a little bit different, and Janet Mills might have a better feel for that pulse.
And you mentioned Schumer wanting Platner to lose. Why is that?
Well, because Chuck Schumer doesn't want a Bernie-endorsed radical progressive thorn in his side. And actually, he personally recruited Janet Mills to run. She was a very reluctant Senate candidate. As from what sources have told me, she was persuaded by Chuck Schumer to enter the race. So she is the chosen, well-behaved Democratic candidate, as opposed to Graham Platner, who I think that probably Schumer is aware of other things that haven't come out yet. It seemed like they had a deep opposition research file on him and thought that maybe the Nazi tattoo and the Reddit comment history, that would be just a career ender for him. But I think that for him, he's not looking just for another Democrat to win that seat. He wants somebody who's going to be a reliable, loyal vote and is going to do what they're told. Graham Platner, he could be more of the Bernie Sanders variety, or even I don't think the John Fetherman variety. I think that Mills would be better for what Chuck Schumer wants long term, which is a controllable Senate majority.
Yeah, makes sense. And Graham, it's in my opinion, Platner is rolling right now. I want to play, before we go to you here, this Dropkick Murphys appearance that he made just a couple of days ago, which is pretty legit, man.
Oh, they dropped him?
Did they?
Oh, sorry. I wasn't seeing the video properly. No, it looks like they didn't drop him. But yeah, I mean,
yeah.
You know that theater well, Steve. You know that
yes,
theater very well.
Yes, I do actually. That's the theater that banned Barstool Sports and Kirk Minahan from doing sellout live shows there. Yeah, obviously if you're a campaign consultant, that's your dream, right? You're struggling with young voters, especially young male voters, and you've got your candidate at Dropkick Murphys crowd surfing. There's no doubt that is a good night in a Democratic campaign for sure.
But do you want that guy handling the appropriations of the federal checkbook? That's the question. Susan
Well, yeah,
Collins.
I mean that's the argument that Senator Collins will be making, right, or Governor Mills will be making as they campaign. But just in raw politics terms, like there's no doubt that is a good video that's going to appeal to the 50% of people who they've got calluses on their hands and they're not really reading the news, but they might open up social media to take a look at something before they go to bed, and they see a video of him crowd surfing with Dropkick Murphys. That's going to be appealing. I mean, as much as we like to overanalyze the political issues and investigate a bunch of the problems in these programs, most voters, you know, they don't know the difference between Medicaid and Medicare.
Right.
So it's hard for them to be concerned about fraud in one of those programs or more niche political issues. If they see a guy and they like his vibe and he's hanging out on stage with Dropkick Murphys, why not vote for that guy? He seems like he's got a good personality, even if that personality is, you know, crafted by Mayor Mamdani's video team and is totally fake and he's just an actor. That's elections aren't always decided by people with the best information.
It was a pretty
Graham,
lame night, though.
Graham, he knows the lyrics, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guarantee you he's got his photographers there getting those really high quality, like grungy punk rock photos that they're going to be dropping all over Instagram and in their campaign ads too. And I don't think you should totally underestimate that. Steve touched on this earlier, and I've been thinking the same thing. Is they did all this oppo dump like right when he started the campaign. I just have a sneaking feeling in the back of my mind that they're sitting on some additional stuff that they might be dropping. I've heard nothing, like that's just total speculation. But
well,
Mills isn't. Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Oh, just to add on to what you've said, I think it's very interesting that there's no one who served with him has come forward. And I know that there's, there are some Reddit threads discussing like military Reddit threads where veterans are, commenting about various things. So there is the potential for, the John Kerry Swift boat ad. That's something that I would think Governor Mills and Chuck Schumer certainly aren't above pulling something like that. But that is just one area where I'm surprised we haven't seen more people who served with him in his video content. You know what I'm saying, Graham?
Yeah, And what was it? Blackwater, the mercenary group that he worked at. There was a bunch of photos that came out like right when he launched his campaign that were allegedly him working at Blackwater, and like the far left hate Blackwater for some reason. I don't even know why. Probably just because it's toxic, masculine, military energy. But I'm not even 1,000% certain they're him. But those were going like super viral for a day, and then I haven't seen them at all since. And I saved them to my computer, but I can't even find them. So it seems like, someone might have made an effort to scrub those off the internet. So I wonder if maybe those will resurface if those are actually him, and maybe that could potentially be damaging. But I mean, the reason I was bringing up that oppo is Mills has to know that he's got all the momentum right now. And if you look at Mills' campaign account, it's every single tweet is about Susan Collins. There's not a single tweet about Graham Platner on there. That seems like the real threat that she should maybe be focusing on. Like all the prediction markets have Platner, last I looked, at like 65-70% to win the primary. And after some of the recent like Dropkick Murphy stuff, that wouldn't surprise me if it's even higher. He's doing that. He's crowd surfing. Meanwhile, Janet Mills did that one campaign event that we all mocked where she was in like an attic somewhere and there was like a bunch of 80-year-olds. She's posted like 17 videos from that event. Like that's the best that she's got right now. So, it's something to definitely keep an eye out for. I'm very curious how that's going to unfold moving forward.
But I've been to a lot of Platner events, as you know, and I haven't seen a lot of veterans presence there. Most of his people at his events, not the Dropkick Murphys event, but are senior citizens. And so, I fit the mold, so I'm not mocking myself. You see a lot of, when you were at senior citizens events, you see veterans hats, like people, Vietnam veterans or I'm a veteran hat. I haven't seen a lot of that. So I do wonder if he does have that military support that, that we all assume that he does have. And Collins would be smart to, wave the flag a little bit and show, and Collins has the record to back it up, that she's very pro, the troops and everything like that and pro veterans. So that'll be an interesting campaign strategy as well.
Well, I think that both Governor Mills and Senator Collins are underestimating the importance of the digital strategy that Platner has. Platner seems to be the only campaign, running statewide that has really mastered the digital strategy. And you see it. Yeah, he's got a talented team. Like you got to be able to recognize it. Like we've built a talented team here at the Maine Wire, so we can recognize that Graham Platner has a talented social media strategy. And I wouldn't assume that what won an election against Shenna Bellows or Sarah Gideon is going to win an election against Graham Platner. And I wasn't really following Janet Mills' Democratic primary too closely in 2018, but again, she was then running as the moderate Democrat. And now she's in a fight with Graham Platner to see who can out progressive themselves, each other. Who can be the most deferential to Somali Medicaid entrepreneurs, who can be the most anti-Trump. So it's a different election, I think, than she's used to running in terms of Democratic primaries. But both of the female candidates are underestimating the importance of the digital media strategy.
Does he have close ties to this state Democratic the party, to the difference makers and influencers?
No, not at all. No, he was an actor. He was an actor. That's how they found Platner. He was like in an aquaculture video touting some aquaculture project, and like political consultants literally saw him and came out and turned him into a candidate. That's why he had some of the opposition research issues. That's why he's had such a bumpy road. But he was like an amateur. He got paid probably like $100 to appear in this aquaculture video, and then they came out and made him into a candidate. And obviously, he has some of these far left communist beliefs, as he articulated in his voluminous Reddit posts. But he has no pre-existing connections with the Democratic Party, apart from his connections with the Socialist Rifle Association, which we've reported on at length. And his campaign manager now is a former employee of the Maine People's Alliance. So he's connected to the far left progressive 501c4, 501c3 world, the same world that's endorsed Shenna Bellows, but is not really connected or has relationships with the more establishment Democrat side of the equation.
When he was first under attack for his tattoo and his Reddit comments, he actually said in some of his campaign appearances, "The Democrats are trying to ruin my life," quote unquote, and we have it on video. He's kind of backed off of that recently in the last couple of months, but he was running as the Democrat establishment candidate, and it'll be interesting to see how he does that if he does win the primary. So it'll be interesting.
I would just think that there's some old Democratic legacy Augusta kingmakers or dynasty people who would look at him and say, okay, the guy's got a clean slate. He doesn't own any of these scandals that she does. He doesn't have any of the familial ties with any of these characters, like the Chinese triad weed folks. He comes without any of the baggage that she has, or is she just such a long time establishment player that it's her time. Everybody owes her. She's done her due diligence. She's been to all the right ribbon cuttings, and she's just a good soldier, and it's Mills time.
Well, I think if he wins based on a cult of personality created by out-of-state consultants, he doesn't owe favors to anybody back in Maine, right? And I think that the same, like the blank slate thing, that might be helpful as a candidate, but it also, if you're the Democratic machine, you're rewarding loyalty and you're counting on loyalty to return favors. So Mills being a predictable known quantity, like they know who to call when they want a little bit of money from Washington, D.C., when they want an earmark added here, an earmark added there. But with Platner, I don't think he's going to get that same establishment backing, because he is a little bit unpredictable. And I have to believe there are at least a few people who still have D's behind their names, who are still enrolled Democrats or Democratic consultants, who understand that the totally far left, like gonzo, multicultural left is not trending in the same direction as it was, say, 5-6 years ago. That it is not going to be the potent general election political winner that it would be in this primary. That's the challenge that they have, is they've got to run a campaign for the Democratic primary that might make them unelectable in a general election.
And you also have to remember, if he becomes a United States Senator, he might be one of 51 Democrat senators. And 48 of the Democrat senators are going to be like, you go sit over there with AOC and Bernie and leave me the hell alone, because we still have the power. So the candidate that's running on your TV isn't going to be the senator that you get, because let's face it, it's the 100 club. The 100-person club is a very exclusive club, and the other Democrats are not going to allow the oyster farmer to come in here and dictate stuff. Sit down. You're a rookie, senator. Sit down, and we'll talk to you when we need you. So I mean, people have to understand that too. You can't discount how important Collins is. Collins is at the top, and if Maine is a poor state now, you lose that person in appropriations, you've just set Maine back farther than it needs to ever go back. So
to your point, John, when you were talking to Graham Platner a couple weeks ago when he was protesting outside of Susan Collins' office, he was saying, well, I'm not going to trust a pinky promise from Christian Ohm. Well, it seems like, looking back on it to a week and a half later, the ICE search has ended, so maybe he should have trusted that pinky promise. Also, in that same video, he's like, why would I trust an administration that hasn't released the Epstein files? So, like 2 days later, they released the Epstein files. So, like, the reason I bring that up is, like, Susan Collins is actually getting stuff done, despite the messaging that they're trying to say where, oh, she's always concerned, she's always coming in late. She's getting results. A lot of the results that she gets might necessarily be headline grabbers, but she's getting stuff done, and she's getting a lot of money moved over to Maine. I think she's got $425 million in total appropriations over to Maine just this week, and they're all in just programs that are not like sexy headline grabbers, but it's still money coming in. So that's up to Susan Collins and her team to articulate that she's getting those results that he would have no chance of getting if he got into the Senate.
And I don't want anything that I'm about to say to be taken as praise of the scope and size of the federal government. I'm with Grover Norquist. I would like it to be small enough to be, strangled in a bathtub. I don't like the whole, money being dished out. But what you were just saying, Ram, it's a reality, and more Mainers intuit it and are aware of it than I even knew. Like when Senator Collins first got the nod to take over the Appropriations Committee, I was shocked by the number of people who somehow felt that was going to improve her ability to be a senator, that was going to make her, more valuable as an elected official, and that was going to result in an improved life or improved community for them, that she had this committee assignment. So it was one of those rare things where it's kind of a niche inside thing, a chairmanship of a committee, but it sunk in to Mainers, and that the bring home the bacon idea. It's something that a lot of voters kind of understand and will motivate them when they're voting. And the other thing I would say about Collins, not to underestimate, is she has world-class constituent services. A lot of freshman representatives or first-time senators, they'll drop the ball on taking care of constituent services. And the number of people who have had to call Senator Collins' office over the year with some issue, whatever that issue is, and have had a good experience and found them responsive, like, you've just earned yourself a lifelong voter essentially by having good constituent services, as opposed to if someone like Congressman Golden, if someone calls your office to tell you about a Chinese marijuana grow and then you never do anything on the topic, well, you've just earned yourself an opposition voter. So I would not underestimate the constituent services that she has offered throughout her career in the Senate is going to be a huge factor in the loyalty that she's earned throughout her career.
That was a big Ted Kennedy thing in Massachusetts as well, is that people from parties had stories about being saved. I do want to get to this Unquirer story in this great audio of the business owner, the cider business owner. Maybe you guys are more familiar with him than I am. Bonvent Cider, and he left a message to essentially to MAGA, telling him that they were, telling people who disagree with him politically, they're welcome, but MAGA can essentially go to hell.
Morning, Sean. There is no part of my business that excludes anyone. In fact, what I try to do is form community with all peoples of all political persuasions. Though if your political persuasions disparage, exclude, harm, or want to kill others, I can't get along with you. So, Sean, if you're a conservative, you're welcome in here. But if you're a fascist MAGA piece of shit, you are not. Morning, Sean. There is no...
So, as a business model, I don't understand how people aren't getting it. aren't understanding how this stuff just does not work with a lot of people. There's this famous other video that's out now showing some guy with a bar during the Super Bowl who showed the TPUSA halftime show, and somebody harangued him and said, "We're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to." You just like with your front door, if people think as a business owner that you're just unhinged, they're going to keep away. People don't like being around unstable people. It makes them nervous. Graham, like, do you see this kind of thing? Is this going to solidify support for this place, or is this going to make normal people say, "Just get out of here"?
I'm like 95% sure this is the same guy, Steve, that was like
It is.
Platner's band. Yeah.
Correct.
So this guy's like a Graham Platner junkie. So that kind of sums everything up, I think, of this business. But it is hilarious. It's like like as a far left guy, I'm the one that's going to tell you what type of conservative you can be. It's okay if you like just want lower taxes, but if you support ICE, then you're just a piece of shit, fascist, extremist. There's a like that attitude is just crazy to have, where they think they're the gatekeeper of what the other side of the spectrum, and then like what conservatives aren't MAGA. There's like it's like the vast majority of the conservative movement are pro-Trump at this point. So he is just, whether he likes it or not, excluding half of the state from that statement.
Well, I would.
Go ahead, Steve.
I once learned from Professor Chris Potholm, who was the campaign manager for William S. Cohen and Angus King, and a professor at Bowdoin College. One of his precepts of running a campaign is sometimes your friends can hurt you more than your enemies. I would put that in this category, because this individual, the guy who runs this cider place, he put out his first video on TikTok, which was since deleted, but we captured it. He debunked the central premise of Graham Platner's whole Nazi tattoo defense, which was that he just learned about it. But he did this video defending Graham Platner and saying, he's known about this for years, that it was a Totenkopf Nazi symbol. So I would say, another item in the list of, your friends not helping you, hurting you more than your enemies can. But you're right that attitude, Graham, is seems to be pervasive amongst some business owners. They think maybe more people believe like them than they do. They have the ability to have toxic empathy with people who live in other continents, but not the ability to empathize with their neighbors. And everybody has forgotten the Michael Jordan rule of, Republicans and Democrats both buy shoes.
Mm-hmm.
There is I think a misconception, and this is what I want to run by everybody here. Graham, you were talking about this guy calling MAGA fascists, and I think that most people who even use the term MAGA or maggots assume that all the MAGA people are fascists. Now, whether they know what fascism is, probably not. It's probably what they see ICE doing. It means being mean to people. But the MAGA verse is very diverse. It really is. Like, there's, when I said Bad Bunny sucked, I got like the million replies showing Trump talking to Epstein. So just assuming that I'm a Trump Epstein guy or whatever that is, that now I want the files hidden because I'm in on the pedo ring. Whatever. Everybody, the opposition has just this wild contention of who the right is. They don't know. They assume all the worst things, that we're all homophobes and racists and all that, but they don't have an accurate read on us at all. Like this guy who runs the bar, whatever, with the voicemail, he probably runs into 36 Trump voters a day who are nice enough people who he thinks are good people, and has no idea that those, like, they created these phantoms, which is why you got 67-year-old women in Portland yelling at law enforcement and just behaving just out of their heads. So, Graham, how much of this can ever be tempered if they only see this composite of Satan when they see their political opposition?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's definitely this like unique psychological phenomenon going on where the people on the left just seek out their own echo chamber more than the people on the right, I would say. Like, in their head, they think they're being inclusive because they have diverse friends in sexual orientation and skin type, but they don't surround themselves with any diversity of personality or any diversity of political beliefs. And it definitely creates like this false sense of reality, in my opinion. Whereas, like, for me, and I think a lot of conservatives, I don't know what it is, I couldn't place my finger on it, but I think like conservatives in general are far more likely to hang out with people they disagree with just in their general social life and their general friend group than the people that were berating John yesterday, for example. Like, I don't see that woman with the Black Lives Matter symbol or a sign hanging out with like a couple of Trump guys at a cocktail party.
No. But Tom, the basic math proves that Trump's base is not the conservative Republican that I am. And, I do support him, but Trump's real base is your grandparents' Democrat. He appeals to the sensible Democrat from 30 or 40 years ago. I've been to maybe 20 Trump rallies across the nation. I've run into more Democrats there than I do Republicans. And I don't think people really understand that yes, and there are a lot of conservative Republicans who don't really like Trump all that much. But Steve said it the other night at the dinner. The reason why Trump won is because it was too big to rig. And there aren't enough Republicans to win that election. He had to appeal to moderate Democrats, and he does appeal to moderate Democrats. So are you calling your grandfather or your grandmother of 30 years ago? Were they fascist? Was John F. Kennedy a fascist? I don't think so. They just throw the word around like it means something. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, well, I think that the something I've believed for a long time is that conservatives are much better at articulating Democrat arguments than or progressive arguments than liberals are at articulating conservative arguments. Like, you can, I think any of us or any conservative can tell you why a progressive might believe in free healthcare for everybody, or open borders, or more transgenderism in schools, whatever their belief system is. But for people on the far left, like the guy who runs this cider company and has a hard-on for Graham Platner, the only way he can conceptualize why somebody would have a different political view is because they're a bad person, they hate people, and they want to hurt people. Like, that's what he actually thinks is, if you disagree with me about tax rates and trade and immigration policy, then you must be a bad person who wants to hurt people. That's the sum total of his imagination, his empathetic imagination, and his ability to just consider, using theory of mind, why would somebody vote for somebody other than Kamala Harris? That's the end. That's the limit. Yes. And I think that is a dynamic that you see playing itself out through all of the hardcore activist fringes of politics, whether it's Maine or any other state.
As a matter of fact, Steve, I think part of it is with that, dovetailed that with the fact that many on the left just don't know anything about what they're upset about. Like, they didn't know how ICE worked a year ago. They didn't know how Border Patrol worked, or certainly immigration laws. There were ICE apprehensions in Maine a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
More than there are today, yeah.
Yes, law enforcement is doing things every single day. And unfortunately, what's left in Maine for the dynasty media, they are painting these actions as something they are not. And like today, I was in jury duty, so you could say today that a man. Ouch. Yeah, I was pretty confident I wasn't going to get picked, and they let us go by noon. But I could work in there, which is fine. But I could say that a bunch of men with guns kept us locked in a room for hours and would not let us leave
against your will.
I could say
true. That was you were fascist. You were kidnapped by fascist Maura Healey.
You reappeared, Tom. You didn't. You're not disappeared anymore.
Right, but you could portray that in a different way if you wanted to, and that's why this media, the Portland Press Herald, and the Bangor Daily News, and everybody else in blue states, including obviously the Boston Globe, that's why it's not media malpractice. It's obviously just propaganda. they know that they could position these ICE actions as what they are by like what you saw when you were in those cars, just like an organized, very sober, law enforcement endeavors. But they're not doing it whatsoever. They have to sow discord and chaos because they just simply can't win on the merits. They can't win the debate, Graham.
Yeah, when you're talking about the media in Maine, that like the propaganda coming from them stems from the fact that they still act like they're neutral arbiters of the news. Like, sure, the Maine Wire it has a conservative slant, but we don't pretend to be anything that we're not. With the propaganda comes when these outlets claim. For example, I watched a video of the editor of the Bangor Daily News saying, we're not beholden to any political party. We're not beholden to basically doing a video saying like we're as neutral as it gets while they're taking money from the Mills administration. Like it doesn't get less neutral than that. And then just scroll through their pages. That's what I think really people have to understand. And that's where I think like we do a good job of calling them out on some of the stuff at the Maine Wire, where it's like, if you're going to be a left-wing media, fine. That's why I don't have like a huge problem with like MSNBC all the time, because you know what they are. But then when you have CNN who still pretends to be neutral and they're not, obviously, like that's the real issue. And it's the same thing with all of these other news outlets. So like Susan Collins, I hate to bring it back to this, but doing her announcement in the Bangor Daily News, and the Bangor Daily News has been skewering her for the last 2 years. It's like, do you really think you're going to get good treatment from them moving forward? Like I don't. So, yeah, I was a little confused by that strategy.
Yeah, that is a great part, actually. That is so amateurish. What a unforced error that was. Stop trying to make these people love you. It was like John McCain trying to make the New York Times love him. They didn't, okay? They did for 5
seconds. And they never will.
That's what Howie Carr used to call that the strange new respect phenomenon. Yeah. You know, they think honestly, you're seeing it with State Senator Rick Bennett, who wants to run for governor as an independent, and casts a couple of votes in favor of forcing girls to compete against boys in sports if they believe that they're girls. And I think there was one other one. I think he voted. Was it the anti-ICE bill that he also voted for? But he kind of casts those two votes, which are clearly for the New York Times, Boston Globe, Press Herald, Bangor Daily News crowd, for their editorial board. And you may succeed in getting that strange new respect from the BDN editorial board, but how many votes is it worth? It turns out, I mean, ask Mitt Romney, ask John McCain. It ends up losing you more than you earn. So I think that there's definitely a misunderstanding. Like the theme that runs through like all of it is a misunderstanding of digital media, how people are consuming information, where their news or their just information generally comes from. And really, it's not the Bangor Daily News. I mean, they're such a shrinking player in this world. And so is the Press Herald, frankly. I mean, the Press Herald post Soros acquisition is just a non-entity in the media world.
Michael says, problem is we have too many sheep in this country who follow blindly. That is a problem, Michael. Hopefully, now that some of NPR has been defunded, they're not getting the constant flow of misinformation that they were getting. We have, John says, when will the video be released that you spoke of earlier? Graham?
Well, the video, we're going to do a story to go along with it. So we're just going to make sure everything is bundled up and ready to go. So I don't want to put a timeline on it because I'm not 100% sure. But in the near future, I would say. And I would definitely encourage everyone watching now to check it out and share it, because it's going to be a good one.
But Tom is the oldest guy here. Like we were mentioning about media and TV and stuff. I can honestly say, now that football season's over, I won't turn my TV on for months, because the only thing I watch anymore on TV is, sports, NFL. I'm not a big NBA guy. I'm not an anti-NBA guy, but I'm not a big NBA guy. But now the football season's over, if you're going to run a political ad and the biggest political geek in Maine is sitting here talking about, I won't see your ad. But I'll see it on digital. I'll see it on social media. I'll see it on, platform. I'll still hear it on the radio, because, I'm one of the few guys that still listens to the radio as well, too. But you know, if you advertise on, the Burn Barrel podcast, I might hear your ad though too, because podcasting, is where it's at. But if you're running a TV ad and bragging about being on TV, I'm not going to see it. And I'm the demographic that you want to see it.
Yeah, no, same here. And we've cord cut now about a month ago, and so we've got YouTube TV, and I get mired in Churchill documentaries, and that's like all I'll ever need. Oh, which brings me, by the way, Steve, I got several inquiries that want to know exactly what you were reading on Super Bowl night, and I assume it's some kind of Sun Tzu global overlord literature, but what was it?
No, I'm science fiction, and baby daddy books. That's where I'm at right now. Yeah. I was reading about the Apollonian brain versus the Artemisian brain in a book about how pregnancy transforms the body.
Oh, good.
I should have said Art of War. I should have said Art of War.
I was gonna say, I lost that. I would have lost that bet.
The book of Jeremiah or something. There could have been something more interesting, but no. Pregnancy books and sci-fi.
Well, have you? I mean, I can't say anything here because I don't know.
Don't try to make it sound cooler than it is. No, I skipped the Super Bowl to read pregnancy books.
Okay. Are you going to be an OBGYN or is there
no, I'm going to be a father. I'm trying to be a good baby daddy. First time father here. So
most important thing you can do in your life. Yep.
I did not know that this wasn't classified. That this was a world to consume.
This was Steve's master plan to get on the paid family leave program.
Exactly. I think I told the CEO of the Maine Policy Institute, years ago when I saw the Maine, the paid family leave tax come into play, that my neighbor's cat was going to get diabetes, and I was going to need to provide emotional support for my neighbor, and that would be a justified reason for me to take paid family leave. But I had, as a backup plan, also potentially starting a family.
So I see you as being a big baby Einstein guy. Are you familiar with the classical music made for your baby for the car ride?
I've heard about that, but there was a professor, I forget his name now, he did a podcast with Tucker, and Tucker, he was urging the listeners, including Tucker, to not allow their baby in womb to listen to like violin music or orchestra music or Mozart, because they might become a violinist, which is what happened to him. And he's been supporting his adult child ever since with a violin habit. So no, we haven't done a big baby Einstein, Mozart with the headphones on the belly type thing. Maybe some Ronald Reagan speeches. I try to sneak some MAGA rallies in there.
Well, that's exciting. When is the due date?
I don't know, sometime a couple of weeks or months or something from now.
Yeah, usually the women know to the day. It's like 26 days, 4 hours.
I don't know. You guys will know because you'll stop seeing me for a while.
So you're bringing the baby with you when you're kicking down doors to Triad Weed places. There are backpacks now. You can do Master Blaster the whole way.
Well, that's the thing is I picked up my 6-hour GTO that Sean Ryan gave me today from JT Reed in Auburn. So we need to make sure that we've got like maybe a holster on the side of the baby carrier. And I don't know if SIG makes something small enough for the kiddo to whip out too. But I think as a tag team father-son duo, busting up organized crime, it's definitely going to be season 2 or the next documentary, Triad Weed 2.0.
Steve, stop talking. You're going to sleep on the couch tonight if you keep talking. Your wife's not going to be happy with this.
Set up some kind of tail gunner rig for the backpack there, Steve, so that everything is completely covered. All right, so let me get to one more or a couple more of these. The liberals are the ones who want to harm people. Yes, they obviously do. They're pro-abortion. They're pro-butchering kids. They demand to be in your business, telling your kid things, taking your kids on gender journeys. They want to get in your lives and stop your leaf blowers and and look at how much wattage is coming out of your house. They can't. Their business is being in your business. There's nothing they love more, especially during COVID. There was nothing that they loved more, the Karens, than looking out and spying and seeing if teenagers were playing basketball and taking blurry pictures and saying, if this is your son, you should know that he's been with 5 other boys and they are not being distant out there.
That's a T-shirt right there. Their business, your business is their business. I like that.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom, before we go, can we just really quickly touch on this, the ICE school walkout and the new statement that came out with that? Because I got a million messages in the DMs about this, and parents are pretty fired up with the superintendent. It seems like this story really struck a nerve. And just to clarify, we're talking about the Camden Hills school walkout where there was a gazillion students and they had signs that said F ICE. And the superintendent put out a statement today that was essentially like, we're sorry we got caught, is essentially what the statement was. So the parents in Camden Hills were fired up by this story, I'm pretty sure. And the superintendent is resigning at the end of the year. But I just think it is a wild move that the superintendent, like, her issue with it was that the videos went out on social media rather than the fact that the walkout actually happened.
Well, yeah, and her statement is damning. She says, staff met with students. Staff met with students Friday morning to make sure that they were aware of the expectation. So in other words, they planned with the student, like, get the kids back in this. F you, the staff met with students. It's crazy. It's crazy. Then she goes on here to say, students have exercised their right to peaceful demonstration on previous occasions, and our practice is to work with student leaders. What the F is a student leader? There's no such thing. This isn't UCLA, and it shouldn't happen at UCLA. It's,
what it is. We've dealt with this before. It's these the Attorney General's office creates these so-called civil rights clubs within the schools, and they're essentially taxpayer-funded, liberal conversion programs, and that's who they work with as student leaders. But the email, the second email couldn't be clearer that this was coached, inspired, managed, brought into being by staff, not students. Nothing about this was a spontaneous, children reacting to how they feel about immigration policy. This is another case where those staff members, in a sane world, those staff members would be looking for new jobs, but instead they have government jobs and they have a teachers union that exists solely to protect their jobs. They have, an entire system of government designed to protect them from ever having to resign.
Yeah, there's some teachers at the school that were being like, oh, I'm not surprised, but I'm horrified that the Maine Wire would share this video. It's like, okay, buddy, you're kind of telling on yourself there. Also, I foolishly forgot to send this to Matt, but when I was searching back through Facebook for something, I came across a photo we posted in 2024 of the Camden Mills High School with a mandatory auditorium showing the gender unicorn. So that's the education at Camden Hills.
Unicorn. Nice.
James says, who's held responsible if a child gets hurt? Yeah, no kidding. Mm-hmm. It's in Massachusetts, there are truant officers. You can, if you don't have your kid in school, the police can come and get you. But you're dealing with in Maine here that the teachers are truanting the kids. It's almost kidnapping. I want arrests. Oh, that ticks me off so much. Oh, that makes me angry. Oh, I was almost out of here, Graham. I was almost out.
Yeah, my bad.
Normal high, but still steady. No. All right. He is Steve Robinson. Go check out all those stories in the Maine Wire. Steve Robinson, John Featherston. He is Graham Pollard. I am Tom Shattuck. We will see you tomorrow, 4 p.m. Stay with us.